Money moves. Markets shift. Companies rise and fall. What feels permanent today can disappear tomorrow. Throughout this series, we watched the journey from obscurity to influence, from struggle to power, from scaling to protection. But now we confront the final question. What remains? Because success is loud, but temporary. Headlines fade. Stock prices fluctuate. Public applause is unpredictable. And even empires can collapse. History is filled with powerful names that once dominated industries, yet today, they are footnotes. Why? Because success alone does not guarantee permanence. Wealth alone does not guarantee remembrance. Power alone does not guarantee respect. Legacy is different. Legacy is intentional. It is not built accidentally. It is constructed through decisions that extend beyond the present moment. Beyond ego. Beyond profit. Beyond visibility. Episode 10 is not about making more. It is about leaving more. Not just assets. But values. Not just systems. But principles. Not just influence. But impact. Because when the builder is gone. When leadership transitions. When time moves forward. The real test begins. Will the empire stand? Or was it only strong because you were there? This is where the journey becomes deeper. Because building wealth is impressive. But building something that outlives you. That is legendary. Wealth looks powerful. Private jets. Skyscrapers. Luxury offices overlooking entire cities. From a distance, it appears untouchable. But wealth alone is fragile. Markets crash. Currencies weaken. Industries evolve. Money is a tool, not permanence. Throughout history, fortunes have vanished in a single decade. Companies that once dominated headlines disappeared quietly. Why? Because wealth without purpose is unstable. It chases numbers instead of meaning. And numbers, by nature, fluctuate. True legacy builders understand this difference. They do not measure success only in revenue. They measure it in relevance. In influence. In contribution. Because when profit is the only goal, sustainability becomes secondary. But when purpose drives profit, endurance increases. The illusion of wealth is believing that accumulation equals impact. It doesn't. Accumulation fills accounts. Impact fills history. Episode 10 challenges the final layer of ambition. Is your goal to be rich? Or to be remembered? Because remembered requires intention. It requires building something that does not collapse when the market shifts. It requires aligning wealth with vision that extends beyond your lifetime. Money can open doors. But legacy keeps them open long after you are gone. There is a difference between being rich and being impactful. Rich people accumulate. Impactful people transform. Rich people own assets. Impactful people shape systems. Rich people build companies. Impactful people build movements. The distinction is subtle, but powerful. You can be financially successful and still leave no footprint. But when influence changes how people think, how they work, how they live, that becomes legacy. Impact is not accidental. It requires sacrifice beyond profit. Sometimes it means making decisions that don't maximize short-term gain. Sometimes it means investing in people instead of just expansion. Impact demands courage. Because it prioritizes long-term transformation over immediate applause. Episode 10 invites you to evaluate your own trajectory. Are you building something impressive? Or something irreplaceable? Because impressive fades with time. Irreplaceable endures. Rich is temporary status. Impact is generational presence. When your name is mentioned years from now, what will it represent? Wealth? Or influence that reshaped an industry? This is the shift from billionaire to builder of legacy. And not everyone makes it. Many empires are strong under the founder, but weak after. Why? Because they were personality-driven, not principle-driven. When the founder leaves, confusion begins. Vision becomes diluted. Standards weaken. Culture fractures. The empire was dependent on one mind, one personality, one force. That is not legacy. That is dependence. True legacy requires systems strong enough to operate without the founder's daily presence. It requires documented values, clear succession, defined leadership pipelines. It requires humility, the willingness to prepare others to lead. Some founders fear replacement. Legacy builders prepare it. Because the goal is not control. It is continuity. History proves this lesson repeatedly. When leadership transitions without preparation, instability follows. Investors lose confidence. Teams lose clarity. And the structure weakens. If your empire cannot function without you, it is not secure. It is temporary. Legacy thinking asks a hard question. If you stepped away tomorrow, would everything collapse? Or continue confidently? That answer defines whether you built wealth or built permanence. Legacy is system-based, not personality-based. Systems create consistency. Consistency creates trust. Trust creates longevity. To build something that survives you, you must document vision, structure operations, codify culture, train leadership. Clarity reduces chaos. When systems are strong, decisions are predictable. Standards are upheld. Expectations are clear. Without systems, success relies on charisma. And charisma does not transfer. But structure does. This is the quiet work of legacy. Unseen. Often uncelebrated. But powerful. Designing governance. Defining succession. Embedding values into daily operations. Because when your presence is removed, the structure must remain. And that structure must reflect your principles. This is the difference between influence that fades and influence that endures. Episode 10 now moves deeper. From wealth to impact to permanence. Next, we explore succession, mentorship, and generational transfer of vision. Because legacy is not what you leave behind. It is what you intentionally build forward. Legacy is not inherited automatically. It is taught. Wealth can be transferred. Wisdom must be developed. Many empires fail in the second generation not because of lack of money, but lack of preparation. The next leaders inherit assets without inheriting discipline. They receive influence without understanding sacrifice. They hold authority without experiencing struggle. And without struggle, perspective weakens. True legacy builders invest in mentorship early. They expose the next generation to process, not just privilege. They teach how decisions are made, how crises are handled, how pressure is managed. They pass down principles, not just property. Because property without principles collapses. Episode 10 challenges a deeper responsibility. Are you preparing successors? Or simply assuming they will figure it out? Legacy requires humility, the willingness to teach patiently. To allow mistakes in controlled environments. To develop character before handing over control. Because leadership is not genetic. It is cultivated. And if the next generation does not understand the foundation, they will mismanage the structure. Teaching is protection. Mentorship is insurance. Preparation is preservation. If you want something to last beyond you, you must intentionally train those who will carry it forward. Succession is uncomfortable. It forces a powerful question. Who leads when you step aside? Many leaders delay this conversation. Ego whispers that there is still time. But time moves quietly. And transition without preparation creates instability. Succession is not weakness. It is strategic foresight. It requires identifying leaders early. Testing them under pressure. Allowing them to make decisions while you still provide oversight. Gradual transfer reduces shock. Sudden absence creates chaos. Investors feel uncertainty. Teams feel confusion. Markets sense instability. Strong succession planning removes fear. It creates continuity. The goal is not to hold power forever. The goal is to ensure power survives beyond you. This requires trust. It requires releasing control. It requires confidence in the systems you built. True legacy builders do not cling to authority. They steward it responsibly. Because legacy is not about personal dominance. It is about sustained excellence. Values define identity. And identity defines longevity. When leadership changes, values must remain constant. If culture shifts every time leadership transitions, the foundation is weak. Legacy builders embed values deeply. Not just in speeches. But in policy. In hiring. In performance standards. In everyday behavior. Values must become operational. Visible. Measured. Because when pressure increases, organizations default to core principles. If those principles are undefined, chaos replaces clarity. Protecting values requires documentation. Repetition. Reinforcement. It requires leaders who embody them publicly. When people see consistency between words and actions, trust strengthens. And trust sustains influence. Without values, expansion becomes fragile. With values, identity remains stable. Legacy is not just structural. It is cultural. And culture outlives leadership when it is intentionally preserved. At a certain level of wealth, accumulation stops being impressive. Contribution becomes powerful. Philanthropy shifts influence from profit to purpose. It reflects awareness that success is larger than personal gain. Legacy builders understand this shift. They invest in education, innovation, community development. Not for applause, but for alignment with purpose. Purpose extends impact beyond industry. It shapes society. It transforms lives beyond boardrooms. And it ensures that influence is remembered for good. Philanthropy is not about charity alone. It is about responsibility. Responsibility to use resources to elevate others. Because legacy is not measured by how much you kept, but by how much you empowered. When wealth creates opportunity for others, remembrance becomes deeper. Impact becomes broader. And legacy becomes meaningful. When you are no longer present, your name remains. But what will it represent? Integrity? Vision? Discipline? Or controversy? Reputation becomes permanent once you are absent. There is no opportunity to correct perception afterward. That is why consistency matters. Character matters. Transparency matters. Legacy builders think beyond immediate benefit. They ask, how will this decision be viewed in 20 years? Short-term gain can damage long-term remembrance. And remembrance is powerful currency. Because history writes its own narrative. You can influence it now. But once you are gone, only your record speaks. Protecting reputation today protects legacy tomorrow. And legacy is the final measure of influence. True legacy does not end in one lifetime. It echoes across decades, across industries, across generations. Influence that survives is influence that adapts. Markets will change. Technology will evolve. Leadership styles will shift. But foundational principles must remain steady. When you build with depth instead of trend, your impact becomes transferable. Generational influence requires relevance without compromise. It means allowing innovation while protecting core values. It means empowering future leaders to evolve systems without erasing identity. This balance is delicate. Too rigid, and the empire becomes outdated. Too flexible, and the identity dissolves. Legacy builders design structures that breathe. Flexible enough to grow. Strong enough to stand. Generational influence is not about control. It is about continuity. It is about ensuring that your work does not fade with fashion. It becomes reference. It becomes foundation. It becomes history. And history remembers those who built beyond themselves. When you begin thinking about legacy, decisions change. Short-term excitement loses its grip. Every move becomes heavier. You ask different questions. Does this align with our values? Will this decision age well? Does this strengthen or weaken the foundation? Legacy thinking removes impulsiveness. It introduces patience. Because you are no longer building for applause. You are building for permanence. This requires discipline under pressure. Sometimes it means walking away from profitable opportunities that compromise integrity. Sometimes it means choosing slower growth for stronger sustainability. The weight of legacy decisions is invisible to the public, but deeply felt by the leader. Because every compromise echoes. And every principled stand reinforces identity. Legacy builders are willing to sacrifice speed for stability. They understand that rushed expansion. In the end, the numbers fade. Revenue charts become archives. Stock prices become history. Offices change ownership. Titles transfer. But remembrance remains. What will they remember about you? Your ambition. Your discipline. Your generosity. Your integrity. Legacy is not created in one grand moment. It is built through consistent decisions over time. Through sacrifices no one applauded. Through integrity when compromise was easier. Through mentorship when control felt safer. Through vision when doubt was louder. This series began with struggle. It moved through growth. It confronted scaling. It protected power. And now it arrives at its highest point. Beyond billions. Because billions measure wealth. But legacy measures impact. You can build an empire. But will it stand without you? You can accumulate power. But will it elevate others? You can become successful. But will you become significant? The final question is not how much you made. It is how much you meant. And that answer is the true definition of greatness. Subscribe to Billionaire Backstories for more great lessons.